What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast from the Action Network and Fantasy Labs. I'm your host, Chris Raybon. It's NFL Week 9. We got waiver wire ads for you, as always. I'll be joined momentarily by one of the most accurate fantasy rankers in the game, Sean Koerner. But before that, quick reminder, all of our fantasy football content available right now over at fantasylabs.com. Fantasy Labs NFL includes in-season rankings, waiver wire tips, and more. We've also added a survivor pool tool, and you can use code FLEX20 for $20 off at fantasylabs.com/flex. All right, Koerner, week 9 waivers. How you feeling? How was your week 8? I know Rondé Gadsden went off, so I'm sure you were happy about that one.
Yeah, had a good week 8. Gadsden, hitting my ladder on Thursday Night Football was amazing. I remember trying to set the projection for you, and I was getting pissed that you took the over 41.5, and then we saw, his prop was 37.5. So I had to lock that in immediately. I figured, he'd get bet up to like 44.5 by kickoff, which was the case. But yeah, man, he's the real deal right now. So that was fun to see, and hope you had a good week 8 as well.
Oh man, I couldn't hit that bet last week. Like every touchdown almost didn't hit. But you know how it goes. On to the next, on to Cincinnati. Unless you're Cincinnati, I don't know where they go. But quarterback, week 9. Who do you like on the waiver wire heading into this week?
Yeah, not a great week for streaming quarterback. And to be fair, you beat me to the dock this week. So every guy that you're going to talk about, I like more than the guy I'm talking about. So go with your guy. But if he's taken, I think Sam Darnold's probably the best option of the rest. I have him as my QB 19 this week. So not great, but he is coming off the bye week. And he has a decent matchup here against Commanders, who have allowed the 5th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. They've allowed 3 quarterbacks now to throw for 3 passing touchdowns. One of those includes Geno Smith, which is really bad to allow Geno to go off against you. So this could be a sneaky spot for Darnold, who, again, he's more of just like a mid-range QB2 in deeper leagues, not somebody you should be bidding any fab on. You shouldn't really be bidding any fab on quarterbacks right now, unless, Jackson's dart is still available somehow. The other guy I wanted to mention is Jacoby Brissett. It sounds like Kyler Murray's expected to return this week, but we've seen guys like Brock Purdy, Lamar Jackson last week. They have a late week setback, and, their return's delayed a week. So if that happens, I would have Brissett as a low-end QB1 against the Cowboys. So not somebody that you need to add or anything, but have him on speed dial. If Kyler Murray has a setback or something this week, you'll want to add him as a potential streaming option. But again, I'm projecting Kyler like a 90-95% chance he returns this week, but it's so dire on the waiver wire. You just got to get creative, and Jacoby Brissett could end up, being a low-end QB1.
Yeah, and Jackson did not have a late week setback, all right? Jackson was practicing with the 3rd team the entire week, and then they tried to gas it at the end, like, oh, yeah, he went through a full practice. Guy was at no point were they planning on Lamar Jackson starting that game.
Right, so, and he was getting the late-night munchies one night.
Oh, my God. He's always, this guy, man. I mean, I don't even know if I can believe that he's starting Thursday. I mean, I know that's what they're saying, but who knows? It's a short week. Who knows?
I was going to ask, like, is he? I guess it's the first game of the week, so I guess we'll know. It's not going to impact any lineup decisions, but yeah, now we just have to, take it with a grain of salt that they're saying he's going to return on the short week.
Yeah, I mean, Huntley is would be kind of an interesting streamer against Miami, so I guess it could impact decisions. I would definitely maybe pick up Huntley too, if just as kind of a fallback if your waiver wire is really dire and you don't get one of these guys that we're about to mention. But yeah, Darnold for you, Trevor Lawrence for me, available in roughly about 5 to 6 out of 10 leagues. Going up against the Vegas Raiders, coming off the bye. Now the Raiders are coming off the bye too, so I'm not expectations aren't sky high. You also have the Brian Thomas trade rumors, so there are some negatives with Lawrence. It's not a great week on the wire, but that being said, it's still the Raiders defense, not much talent there. They could still be selling, at the deadline themselves. So who knows what's going on with them? But I do think, coming out of the bye, a guy like Liam Cohn with that Jags offense, I thought they performed above expectation, all things considered. It was just Lawrence really who didn't play that well, and maybe Diami Brown, Thomas, like the guys that you expect to play better didn't. But coming out of the bye, we saw Hunter get going, going into the bye, so I think that's a positive. So I do think Lawrence should have enough here to give us, maybe low end QB1 numbers, but it's not great. I would pick up Huntley. If you can't get one of these guys, or maybe even if you can, if you think it's, you might need him in Lamar, because Lamar could be out, and this is not a great Dolphins D either. Running back is pretty interesting this week. I know there's a bunch of guys you're looking at, so kind of talk us through some of them.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about the main prize, but let's first talk about, the Cardinals backfield. I don't know how or why, but Bam Knight's still available in 82% of the leagues. That's insane to me, because he's the clear lead back for the Cardinals right now, at least until Trey Benson returns. So he's, low end QB, RB2 against the Cowboys this week. Either way. And we had Michael Carter get cut yesterday. They just added him. He's on the practice squad. I'm projecting him to, remain the number 2 back, but that has to be good news for Bam Knight. And then, I think Trey Benson, he's still available in 45% of leagues. He's on the IR right now, and maybe leagues where you can't stash him on the IR. There was 6 teams on bye. Someone had to, cut bait with him. I think he's a must-add right now because he's eligible at least to return from the IR next week. I don't know if he's going to play next week, but, he could return to practice, suit up next week or week 11. But he should be added everywhere because I'm assuming once he's healthy, he's going to take over as the lead back, and then Bam Knight would be his backup. So he's, more of a short-term, long-term stash if he's available. And then a few others that I think are, must-adds in deeper leagues is Kyle Monangai is available in 63% of leagues. He's one of my favorite ads right now. He's really is sort of dollar store David Montgomery right now, which is sort of what I pegged him as if he were able to leapfrog Roschon Johnson, which he has. But, he's going to need a positive game script to offer RB3 flex value. But, if DeAndre Swift ever misses time or there's a really good potential positive game script, he could offer RB2 value. So he's one of my favorite stashes right now. You could even use him this week if you needed to. And then Isaiah Davis, available in 91% of leagues. The Jets are on a bye this week. So there's a chance, Breece Hall is traded before their next game. And Isaiah Davis would be the lead back. And Braylon Allen, he's expected to miss, a handful more weeks, maybe the rest of the season. So Isaiah Davis could be the Jets' lead back the rest of the way, and he's just widely available. So now would be the time to add him, as opposed to waiting for next week and then, having Breece Hall traded right before waivers and, needing to bid 20% on Isaiah Davis. You don't want to have to do that. So you could stash him, for free, hopefully, now and potentially have the Jets lead back the rest of the way.
Yeah, I like that call because he was a lot more involved. Now Cincinnati is terrible, but at the end of the day, we've heard the rumors with Breece Hall all season. It hasn't been quite right. So yeah, I like getting ahead of that. And any thoughts on the Chiefs backfield? I know Hunt reemerged last night as well.
Yeah,
and it sounds like they're not looking to make a trade for a running back. That's what we believe Diana Rossini reported. So that would be good news for Hunt, right?
Well, when did that report come out? Because, Pacheco, he hurt his knee last night, and I've been kind of waiting to hear reports. It sounds like he's closer to week now, which is not good news for, his week 9 availability. So I think Kareem Hunt is a must-add. He's available in 65% of leagues. Coming off that 2 touchdown game, so he probably does need a decent bid to get him. But there's a chance he's the starting back this week if Pacheco misses, and Brashard Smith as well. He would be a must-add if Pacheco's out. So, again, don't like having these murky situations heading into waivers, but, Hunt and Brashard Smith are sneaky ads. And, yeah, was that report before the Pacheco
news? It was before the game, but I just thought it was interesting because, they do have 3 backs. So I wonder if, they're obviously prepared for somebody to get injured if they're not looking for – and they have Mitchell on the on the active roster too. So I wonder if they're just going to stand pat and just activate Mitchell into the Hunt role. Hunt would take the Pacheco role.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But Pacheco ends up being out multiple weeks. Who knows? They could go after a guy like Breece Hall. You just never know. But at least for this week, I think Kareem Hunt and Brashard Smith could be solid ads if Pacheco's out.
Yeah, definitely. Tyrone Tracy is the top ad this week. Going forward, Cam Scatterboo, serious injury, unfortunate for him. Yeah. But Tracy kind of came back at the right time. He was injured for a bit, but now it looks like he's going to be essentially that featured Scatterboo kind of role with Devin Singletary, mixing in here and there. But I expect Tracy to get, about 2/3 to 3/4 of the snaps in the backfield. So going up against the Niners, who we saw last week, exploitable defense with all those guys out. So it's a good spot for him this week. It's a good spot for him going forward. He's worth a pretty hefty bid at this point because I don't think the Giants would be in the trade market necessarily. It's not like they're trying to make a playoff push necessarily, but they're also not out of it. So they're gonna play their best guys, and I think Tracy is kind of in that sweet spot. A couple other guys. Any thoughts on Tracy before we?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what percent bid do you think he's warranted this week? It depends on a ton of factors, obviously, for your individual team.
I would probably bid. I never like to go above 50 really for anything. So I would bid 50 of what I had left. But if it's, if you only have like a few hours left, I would bid it all. But assuming you have more than 50%, I would kind of, 50% would kind of be my limit. Just because, you always want to have a little bit left over going down the stretch. Tracy could get hurt too. It's still week 9, but this is the playoff push and he should be valuable as far as we can see, right into that playoff run. So yeah, I think he's worth definitely, half your fab if you have it. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I would say about half. He's my RB 15 to open the week. Again, this is Scatterboo is unfortunate, but it's a season-ending injury, so he has the rest of season to offer RB2 value. He's going to be game script proof because he is involved in the passing game. So there's really not much to complain about. So if you're in win now mode and you need a running back, again, like you said, I just bid it all. It really depends on your situation. Are there any other players or situations you think it would even warrant 100% fab, drop? I think like Tyler Algier and Blake Corum, if Bijan Robinson or Kyron Williams were to have a season-ending injury, those guys would warrant, 100% bid. But, the chances of that is still pretty low.
Maybe Montgomery.
Oh, yeah, if he's available. Yeah.
There's not many. But the thing about Tracy is he has been benched for fumbling issues and he's been taken out at the goal line for Singletary. So like there's those like little things with him that, he's
not perfect.
He's not perfect. Like all those other guys you mentioned, I think I would like more. But no, it's up there. I always, I try to say like you have to be prepared for everything, and like this is a running back, like just like Scatterboo was a hot bid a few weeks ago, and now he's done for the season. So I never like to tell people just bid it all, and then Tracy goes down or gets benched or like after 1 week or his value goes down immensely. So like I always like to have a little left over. But yeah, he's high on the out of anyone this year that I remember, I would say he's probably the highest. A couple other guys, if you can't get Tracy or some of the guys you mentioned, Tajay Spears still available in about 70% of leagues. He outsnapped Tony Pollard last week, and I think we alluded to this on the pod last week. But he was trending up, and with this new coaching staff, there's that bit of uncertainty as to how's his backfield gonna kind of shake out. And last week it was Spears 37 snaps, Tony Pollard 33 snaps, Julius Chestnut 2 snaps. So not only is Chestnut taking snaps out of Pollard now, but Spears outsnapped him. So not good for Pollard, good for Spears. And, you could say, well, maybe it's because of the passing. They were big underdogs and they were trailing a lot of that game. Spears did play 27 snaps in the passing game. Pollard did get a couple more carries, but that's going to be the case most weeks. It's the Titans. Like, who are they going to be favored against? Who do you project them to have a lead against for any duration of time. Not many. And Spears is also just playing better. I think he broke a long run on his first or second carry in that game against the Colts. It's ended up with like a 40-yarder or something. So he's trending up. And one other guy I wanted your thoughts on, Devin Neal for the Saints. He's interesting because we've heard the rumors with Kamara potentially being traded. They're saying, like, Kamara's saying he doesn't want to be, but that's, the Saints, who knows what they're thinking. Apparently everyone's up for grabs. I've heard Shaheed, Cooks, Olave, Kamara. Koerner and Neal pretty much split snaps last week. Now, it didn't show up in the box score because Koerner got most of the carries, but Neal did get, I think it was 3 receptions and did get a lot of that work, out of in the passing game, which is usually a Kamara's specialty. I thought they were going to mix in Taysom Hill a bit more than they did, but he was still kind of what you would consider a third back, if that. So, I mean, Neal is kind of like in that Isaiah Davis space where he's like a trade away. Any thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think that's a very sneaky ad this week because, again, if Koerner gets traded away, Devin Neal's last man standing, and he's a 6th-round pick, but I compare him to like a DeAndre Swift type. I think he could handle a full workload and solid in the passing game. And I think with Tyler Shuck under center, he's going to be more willing to check down to the backs than Rattler was. I guess we'll see this week. But yeah, Koerner, he got banged up. I don't know if they're also just, they might be just limiting him because they are shopping him around and they want him healthy. But Devin Neal, like, he's a sneaky stash right now because he has multiple paths to being the lead back the rest of the way. Whether it's, Koerner getting hurt or, traded away or just shutting down Koerner and just evaluating for next year and beyond. There's a ton of outs for Neal. You could probably get him for $1 this week, if that. Yep. You could probably get him for free. So now's the time to kind of stash someone like that. And if Koerner isn't traded, then maybe you can drop him and kind of see how it goes this week. But yeah, he's definitely a sneaky ad this week.
Yeah, because the other, I think we have to kind of watch for. We look at the inactives. This actually, comes into play. But I noticed that they claimed Zaire Mitchell-Padden from the Ravens, who is like a tight end fullback hybrid that the Ravens were using in place of Ricard. Now, he was inactive this week. If he's active, that would be their essentially fifth tight end. That would mean Taysom Hill would probably be shifting more to a backfield role. So that's something kind of like, if you're watching, for inactives, I would watch for, because that could signal like Neal has less of a role if Kamara's still on the roster. But as of now, as long as, they're doing what they're doing and, Mitchell-Padden is inactive again, I think it's good news. And it could still be good news for Neal either way. Because, Taysom Hill, I feel like he would have had – I think he had his most carries in his first game back and has been a kind of a bit player since. So we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, that's something to kind of watch for as well. Wide receiver, who are you looking at heading into week 9?
As always, I think it's just better to just highlight one guy instead of 6 or 7 that people are looking into. Just wide receiver on the waiver wire, just not ideal. So I'm going to go with the guy that I seem like I talk about every week. It's Troy Franklin, who's still available in 62% of leagues. And, last week he had a great game, 6 catches, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he's probably somebody that you now have to bid 3 to 5% on to get. But he's still going to be pretty inconsistent week to week. Anybody outside of Cortland Sutton in this passing attack will be. And this is a tougher matchup against the Texans. But I still have him as my wide receiver 35 to open the week because Marvin Mims is currently in the concussion protocol, and typically players do miss, at least one game when they're there. So I have Mims closer to doubtful. So that means, Franklin's a lock for, an 85% route run rate. His, target share is going to be more stable if Mims is out. So I think he's a safer option than usual this week. So again, he's sort of a low end wide receiver 3 for me this week, which you don't really get from the waiver wire. Wide receiver, you're usually getting guys that are, wide receiver 4s. But Franklin, he has sneaky upside to be a wide receiver 3 when we have 4 to 6 teams in a bye, he's going to be a sneaky wide receiver 3. So I think Franklin, probably wouldn't bet too much on him, but maybe like 1% if you're in need this week. I think you could certainly do worse.
Yeah, definitely. He's probably trending up. Pat Bryant as well, just because they're so inconsistent. I'm sure we'll get more looks now. That will kind of stabilize that, at least for this week if Mims is out. For me, it's a guy I've mentioned in passing. I think last week I might have mentioned him, but he should still be added. He's available in 90% of leagues. That's Shimray DK of the Titans, and this is just another one of those things where kind of looking at this new coaching staff and the usage, and he unfortunately had him for a touchdown last week, didn't get in the end zone, but put up another great receiving game, had over 90 yards. Clearly, their top receiver now. Getting air yards. Even when Calvin Ridley comes back, I think it kind of remains that way because, what they're doing is they're kind of focused on more high percentage throws for Cam Ward. And whether it's Manor or Ridley on the outside, one of those will be the top outside target. But I just think that DK from the slot is going to be, a guy that's going to get more usage. We've seen them are also kind of uptick their tight end usage as well. So I think that's the way it's trending. They're going up against the Chargers, a defense that tends to play a lot of zone. So this could be another good week. They could be, behind by a lot. The Chargers offense got rolling against the Vikings last week. So I think DK is I know he's like a kind of an unknown to a lot of people, and especially buried on the Titans depth chart. But remember, they released Tyler Lockett. He's now with the Raiders. So that opened up the full, slot kind of role for DK. And, he's almost at just straight up, full-time wide receiver 1-2 usage. Started to see his route rate tick up into the 80% range. So I think he's only trending up. They've been trying to get him in the end zone, use him around the goal line, just all types of usage that kind of gives you these positive flags for a guy like him. So he's another one. I don't know how sneaky he'll be because he put up 2 straight good games, but I definitely think he's worth, so a couple of percents going forward, just because if you look at like who can be consistent week to week, it's going to be a guy like him coming out of the slot. Usually get, PPR, usually get 4 or 5 receptions out of guys like this if they're the number one target. So it could be like a mini poor man's Amon-Ra type of breakout from a couple of years ago. Remember when he was, kind of just floating around and all of a sudden So I would definitely kind of add him and see what happens. And I think he's usable as kind of a low end wide receiver 3 flex this week. Tight end, Sean, who do you like for week 9?
Yeah, so, obviously, Ronnie Gatson should be taken in every single league. I would, bid a ton for him if he's still out there. But I got a couple fun ones that kind of involve the potential, trade deadline. Obviously, we're going to be disappointed. The only trade that'll happen will be like Russell Wilson of the Vikings or something. Like, I'm fully prepared to be disappointed. Everybody's staying pat. Nobody getting traded. I'm fully expecting that. But the first guy I think we should stash in deeper leagues is Isaiah Likely, who's available in 96% of leagues. He's already, a sneaky stash in deeper leagues because if Mark Andrews were to ever miss time, he could offer tight end 1 value. We've already seen that in the past, and especially with Lamar Jackson potentially returning, that's even more so. But, Mark Andrews is somebody that's potentially on the trade block. So just an additional path for Likely to become a, rest of season tight end 1. So you could stash him this week. And then if Andrews isn't traded, then he could drop him. But the other guy I think is even more likely to be a tight end 1 the rest of the way is Harold Fannin Jr., who's still available in 54% of leagues. The Browns are on a bye. So the next time they play, David Njoku could be on a new team, and Fannin Jr. could be the clear lead tight end, where I think he has top 10 upside in that role. So I think Fannin Jr., Isaiah Likely are potential tight ends if you're in a pinch to just stash and see what happens over the next week or so. They could become top 10 options the rest of the way if, the starting tight end on their team gets traded away.
And I would say Fannin, even if Njoku's still there, has top 10 upside. I mean, where's Jerry Jeudy? I don't know where the guy is. He's like a cardio.
He's running routes.
He's somewhere. But yeah, I mean, Fannin's essentially their number 1 receiver at this point. Him and Njoku's their number 2, or vice versa.
Yeah.
A couple other guys. Guy for this week I like a lot is Theo Johnson. He's available in about 3/4 of leagues, going up against the Niners for the Giants. He's starting to play just every snap now. His route rate has been above 95% for 2 straight weeks. Daniel Bellinger got a little banged up, so we'll see how that goes. But either way, Theo Johnson, I think, just the potential to become even more involved with the Scatterboo injury. On the outside, it's really, a lot of cardio king types with Darius Slayton. Hyatt was inactive. We got Will Jordan Humphrey there. So, the Ray McLeod is on the practice squad. So a lot of guys who are going to run routes, but might not be targeted. I think Johnson's in a good spot, and the Niners defense is banged up. And then Colston Loveland's still available in, about 70% of leagues. Now, I don't think we're sure at this point if how much time Cole Kmet is going to miss, but I would still want to grab Loveland now. Going up against the Bengals, we've seen them give up. Where they almost give up the tight end, the four-way tight end touchdown to the Steelers a couple of weeks ago, and then
if Connor Hayward, if Rodgers didn't overthrow Connor Hayward in the end zone, that we would have saw 4 different tight ends score a touchdown against him.
So he's probably worked an ad either way, and kind of see what happens. But there's a chance Kmet misses again. He was kind of more close to doubtful last week, I think, than questionable. So we'll see how that goes. But he's available if a little bit of a longer term thing, because I think you kind of expect his usage to tick up throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
Talented guy, so like him. But Theo Johnson for this week, I think, if you don't want to spend as much, is a fine option as well. Defense, special teams, who you got?
So I have the Rams as the top one. You'll talk about them next, but I think the Lions are also a solid streaming option. Obviously, they're available in around half the leagues. I think, a lot of people had to drop them because there were 6 teams on bye last week, including the Lions, but this is a great spot to stream them against the Vikings at home. JJ McCarthy looks like he's going to start this week. And from what we saw in the first 2 weeks, he didn't look good. So I think, he's primed for a few sacks, maybe a pick 6. They're going to have to drop back and throw. The Lions should be able to put up points at home here. So I think the defense at 46% is a must add. And they open the week as my number 3 ranked defense.
Yeah, the Rams, you mentioned it, number 1, going up against the Saints. Looks like it's going to be Tyler Shuck in his first start. Rattler got benched last week, so that seems like it's going to turn around. And Rams still available, about 60% of leagues. They were on a bye as well, so another team that you can kind of scoop up. One of these two should be available. Either way, you have a top 3 option with the Rams and the Lions. And then kicker, where you're looking on the wire for kickers heading into week 9.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tyler Loop here, available in 56% of leagues, but he plays Thursday night at Miami. And he's been solid this year. He's made 92% of his field goals, only 1 of 2 from 50 plus. So not exactly the next Justin Tucker, but I expect him to get more, long attempts going forward. And I think he'll be fine. He has a solid leg. So, but this spot, hopefully, Lamar Jackson returns this week. And I think he's going to get a big boost from that. They should be able to provide him with plenty of scoring opportunities here. And I always like having the Thursday night football kicker if, it's kind of a tiebreaker, just because, sometimes the offenses can be a bit rusty or just the game plan isn't quite there. So they settle for more field goals. But I also like kind of knowing how many points I get from my kicker. That can kind of help lineup decisions later in the week, whether I'm going to be a little bit more conservative or aggressive, just depending on, if I consider myself the favorite or underdog. So just having that score kind of locked in does help when it comes to lineup decisions. And having said that, I have Tyler Loop as my number 2 kicker. If, Lamar Jackson's ruled out again at Tyler Huntley, he could drop to my, number 10 kicker. I don't know, but that's something to consider if Lamar ends up getting ruled out. Loop's going to drop in my kicker rankings. But as of now, he's inside my top 2.
Yeah, he's my kicker 5 right now. So, got him top 5 as well. The guy I'm rolling with is Joshua Carty of the Rams. He's my kicker 6. And, kicking indoors, obviously good spot against the Saints. Should be a spot where the Rams are playing with a lead for a good chunk. I also have Cairo Santos actually ranked number 1, but that, the only thing with him is, he was a little banged up. So it's a little more, the floor is probably a little lower, but just on raw projection, I think Santos is also an option, but Carty's available in, over 90% of leagues. Loop is available. So either way, there are plenty of options this week. I wouldn't really stress kicker. That would be kind of my last priority. I think Cam Little even, against the Raiders indoors is a fine option as well. So bunch of options at kicker this week.
Yeah, Cardi has perfected the new kickoff rule. They average field positions on the 17-yard line. If there's a league out there that offers bonus points for like kickoffs, Cardi would be my kicker one. He's been unreal in kickoffs, but I'm sure there's not too many leagues out there giving points for that,
or any.
But it's always fun. It's always fun to factor that in with like player props and things like that. He's been so good that teams typically start, with 80 plus yards in front of him.
Yeah, I mean that means a couple more cracks at it for who is it, Devin Neal, I guess, in the
Yeah. Yep.
All right, that is going to do it for our NFL Week 9 waivers episode here on the Fantasy Flex. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode all season. And don't forget to check out the Fantasy Labs app for all of our projections and more. You can use code FLEX20 for $20 off an NFL sub. We'll be back with player projections tomorrow, DFS preview on Thursday, and favorite TDs on Friday over on the Action Network podcast. Sean is on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. You can find us at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Let's get this money.